On episode 43 of Chit Chat, we investigate how much we care about protecting our games. Do accidents just happen, or are we better off safeguarding against the worst case scenario? We'll get to the bottom of it and save a little time to talk about games we've been playing too. Welcome back to Chit Chat. This is episode 43, and we're going to be talking about a very, very serious topic today, and that's whether or not we use protection on our board games. Sorry about the bad pun, but we are going to be talking about how much you care about your board games, how much you're a freak about your board games at the table. I can tell you, for one, I'm sitting at a table, sometimes people have wet glasses with no coasters, and I start to get a little bit nervous.
That's a no-no.
Yeah, but before we get into all of our neuroses about all of that, we're going to talk about who won the contest last time.
All right, so Diamond Dog 42, you have won Bad Maps. Just make sure you email us at manvsmeeple@gmail.com to claim your prize. And this week we're giving away Comanauts from Plaid Hat Games. Just make a comment below and you're entered to win.
All right, so let's talk about protection and the whole topic in general as to whether or not you care about your games. If you're pretty easygoing about them, do you shuffle the cards? Do you sleeve your cards? All that sort of stuff. Anyone want to start?
I'll start off with the sleeving of the cards because I sleeve everything that I get. Like, not everything.
Not everything.
But most of the things that I really enjoy. Like, if I go to a convention and I find a game that I really like, I try not to play with my copy at the convention, and I sleeve it, like, almost immediately. In fact, there are games that I've been wanting for a while that come into the Man vs. Meeple collection, and I'll open it up before you can touch it, and then I'll sleeve it. So, I mean, am I right?
Yeah.
I'll sleeve the first thing
He's
I do.
a freak.
I just want to make sure that the game stays in good condition so that if I do like it, I'll have it forever. Well, mostly forever, but I won't have to replace it anymore.
And that's so you can freely hand it out and loan it out to anyone who wants it,
No,
right?
no, let's go into that too. Like, I have a really bad time about giving my own personal games away. And that sounds super selfish, but I know I'm not alone. There has to be people out there who just want to hold on to their games and not let people take them, because I don't know if they're gonna like throw it in a bag and just throw it in a corner and the little corner gets bent or a component in there gets bent and I get it back and I'm missing a card or I'm missing even one wooden cube that I could probably replace somewhere. That drives me nuts.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I have a story when it comes to that. I had, and hopefully this guy's not watching, but my game of Splendor that I had, this was about 2 or 3 years ago. I loaned it to some guy that I was doing some work with, and he returned it about a week or two later, and it was as if, and I'm not exaggerating in the least, it was as if he'd opened the box and taken some sort of like body oils and poured them the cards were all warped. It looked like it was water damaged, and it smelled fragrant, like
they must have spilled
potpourri.
perfume on it or something.
It smelled like potpourri, and everything was all warped. And
So what did you do in that instance? Did you replace it, or you just say, I'm done with Splendor?
Well, I will say at that point, I was kind of done with Splendor anyway.
All right.
So it still sits on my shelf, and I'll bring it over the next time I'm over. But anyone who's close to me, and anyone who's close to any of us, generally knows how we are about those things. Mm-hmm. So most people know when they ask, they'll tell me up front. I'll be really, really careful with it.
I definitely will make internal divisions about games that I'm just willing to let anyone borrow, and games that like are out of print or hard to find, or like Grail games that you love that you don't really want anyone touching.
Yeah, if they can be replaced easily.
If it can be replaced and I feel the same way about sleeving a game. Mm-hmm. If I have a game that's $20 and it can be replaced for $20,
sure, it
might take $20 worth of sleeves to sleeve it. I'll just buy a new copy of the game. But yeah, games that are out of print, if somebody destroyed one of my old out of print games, I mean, I'd probably be pretty upset.
What about you, Kara?
Well, I don't know. So I live in a middle place because I love, like, one of my personal things I love to do is introduce people to games, because I come from being in the board game industry, I come from a world where not a lot of people were big board gamers, maybe more video gamers. And as I run into these people, like, a lot of my games that sit in my collection are for me to play with somebody and then hand off. Or like I just called about 40 games that I donated to our local Books and Brews so that people could play them. They're all in really good shape, but I never sleeve those because they are not games I plan to keep. And honestly, like, I like sleeving certain things like Dice Throne because I like the sleeves.
Well, those are cool.
Not because I like sleeving. I actually prefer not to sleeve my games, which is weird because I am very particular about the state of my games, but I like the tactile feel of the cards.
I agree.
And the sleeves just don't do that for me. But there are certain games I will sleeve, and to the point where some of them are like Wingspan. I'm like, should I sleeve this? This is a game that I play a lot, but I don't like the idea of sleeving that game because I love the way it feels.
I feel you on that. Going back to the sleeve thing, though, one of the things that I always pay attention to is the insert that's in the game. Like, will it fit sleeves, number one? And if it fits sleeves, will it fit all the cards that are sleeved? Like, Seasons is a great example. Yeah. I've sleeved Seasons because I like that game just as much as you do. But it doesn't fit back in the box, not even remotely.
Even unsleeved it barely if you have all the expansions.
Right, so you have to pay attention to that. But I'm the kind of person that buys sleeves by the bulk. I buy those bricks of FFG and other ones.
I have a ton of sleeves at home.
Yeah, so when you go upstairs, like anytime I have a game and I have sleeves ready to go for that game.
Yeah, I definitely keep sleeves in stock for when I'm ready to sleeve something. Because there are just games you want to sleeve because I am a lender. I do like to lend my games out. I like people to have them and play them and enjoy them. There are certain games I will never lend, though, and like Wingspan is one of those. I don't. It's too precious to me. I like it. I know it's in good shape where I have it. I have special components for it. It's not one that'll ever be handed out. I'll play it with other people, but it's not going to be a lent game.
And I'm assuming you haven't sleeved that, or have
no,
you?
Gosh, no.
See, I think
that one, everything about that game, down to the rule book, feels so nice. I don't want to change anything
you need to come up with special sleeves that kind of emulate that.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel the same way about sleeves. Like, there are some games I have that have sleeves, but in retrospect, I probably don't enjoy playing with them as much. And I don't know if it's just the tactile nature of the feel, but just the practicality of it, too. You were saying before we started recording, you like shuffling cards that are sleeved.
Yeah.
I cannot stand shuffling cards.
It's easy to shuffle cards.
This is an interesting
not a big deck, no.
You guys, neither one of you really like shuffling games with sleeves. And we both like shuffling games with sleeves.
Yeah.
And we're both Magic players.
Sure.
And when you come from, like, I got so used to that feeling of riffle shuffling with sleeves that now that's just like second nature.
I think it also comes to a place of where you are as a gamer. Like, I'm a collector, and I've grown up as a collector. I grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of money, so I always was taught to protect the things that you have. And when you grow up playing Magic and Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and all these games have cards that are, hundreds of dollars, you want to protect those.
Dice Throne is a good example where I love the sleeves, which was part of it, but I didn't initially sleeve that game, but that game gets to the table so frequently that it has to be sleeved because I want to protect that game because it is the most played game in our house. It hits the table more than any other game, and I don't want to have to replace it because it's not cheap to replace all of Dice Throne, season 2 in the nice big box that we got it in. And you bet your bottom dollar when season 1 comes back, when the new season 1 comes out, I'm sleeving that. I'm sleeving DTA. I'm sleeving all of it because I know we will play it very frequently.
Well, the interesting thing too about the difference between Dice Throne and Wingspan is that Dice Throne, when they made that game, they thought of what the game would be contained in with sleeves in it. Like it's made where all the cards can be sleeved and still fit in there. I don't think you can sleeve Wingspan and still put it back in that blue container.
Yeah, I wonder.
Like there's no way.
Oh, maybe not.
No, because it's almost to the top just without sleeves.
Yeah, so I think that you have to think about that as well. One of the other things I want to talk about when you talk about protecting games, like we have a local convention called IndieCon, and everyone brings their games there to play, and they leave them there for 3 days, like even with the room, and they go out to eat. Do you guys leave your own games in like conventions or local hangouts or any of those meetups? Are you like me where I physically can't take my games there and not be away from them?
So it depends for me. Again, like I said earlier, I have tons of games that I would consider like not great games. Like games that I don't love, that I don't really like. If something would happen to it, I wouldn't shed a tear.
Sure.
So I'll bring those games. I'll just leave them sitting out on the table. Games that are really important to me, I won't bring to a convention. If I'm going to bring it to like a game day to play like a brand new game that I love, I will keep it with me at all times, or I will put it behind the kiosk at the game store because I just know that there are people that will just come up and just take your game and like play it, and you have no idea if they're going to eat near it, they're going to spill on it.
That's the thing is you never know. People are all different shapes and sizes and that completely different attitudes about how they want to protect their games. And if we can all we could shift over to, we've been talking about sleeves a lot. Just the whole idea of like, how do you communicate to someone who's not like you, like, hey, we're playing this game. Yeah, the pizza's over there. No pizza at the table while we're playing this game. I don't want crumbs on this. I don't want drinks anywhere near here. I mean, everyone who knows me generally knows that about me, so no one pushes that. And I don't play with a vast number of people. But like you just said, when we're at a game store or a convention, you know, people have completely different attitudes and can walk up and just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna sit down my Chinese food that I just got out right here next to the table and eat it over the cards that I have in my tableau. And I'm sitting there the whole time just kind of like, there's a noodle that's about to fall.
Well, until like what Jeremy was saying, like I'll take my games to the KGI local meetup every month, and I try and take some of the new stuff. Like one time I remember I took the new expansion for Villainous, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I know most of the people that are here. It was at a location we hadn't been to before, so there was some new people, and they're just kind of like, I look over and they're browsing through my bag, and this like sheer panic all of a sudden, because I was like, I don't know them well enough yet to know if they're going to know what to do when they take a game out of my bag. And so I do have those moments, but some family friends of ours that we play with fairly often, we play with, their little girl is always with us. She's around 3 years old. And so I always I have like a box of components sitting there for her so that she can play with us. And there are certain games I'll actually let her have parts of, and there are other ones I won't. And she's a very sticky child. And so that's part of where we came up with this idea to have her own components. But then every once in a while, we'll be talking and not thinking. Because we eat, because their game table's in the kitchen. And we kind of, we put everything aside, we'll eat, and we'll come back to it. But I do find myself sometimes in those comfortable situations where you're like, or we had a game day at my house recently where I've got my brand new game topper. We've got all these cool things to hold the cups and stuff. But a few drinks in, people, they still can knock those off. So you find that it's kind of like, okay, we're getting out the party games now, the easy replaceable games. Yeah. Or I've got, like I said, the little box of components that I'll keep around for her so that she can be and participate with us, but if she happens to get them sticky, I'm not too upset. And that way we're not kind of hounding her and having to pay too close attention to her the whole time.
Yeah, I'm even nervous around our Rascaler table with us. There's a built-in cup holders, people bringing drinks down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just super anxious about games in general. All right, so I think we've talked about that enough. Let's talk about the games we have been playing just prior to Gen Con, which is now 2 weeks away. Yeah. We're just a couple weeks away. A lot of us have been playing a lot of games for our live stream, which is coming up this Saturday, so we can be prepared for that. Kira, we'll start with you. What have you been playing in the past couple weeks?
It'll be last Saturday by the time this comes out, I think. Saturday. So you guys will have to watch the replay if you missed it. Well, we've been going through a lot. So we played Bargain Quest today on our weekly live stream. We've played, so getting ready for the stream, we've played Artsy from Renegade. We've played Rebirth, the new DC deck builder, which is different. Like, it was very different kind of deck builder because it has these locations, which was really interesting. Also playing a lot of Dice Our Own Adventures because that just launched on Kickstarter and we did a round one and had a lot of fun with that. So, I mean, we've been playing a lot of different things. I could go through the whole list, but I know it's going to kind of copy with some of you guys. So
yeah, don't do everything.
Don't do everything.
I'll talk about a couple, and we've talked about these before, but I've played them a little bit more recently. One is Res Arcana, which we've had for a while. Mm-hmm. I got my own copy just maybe a couple weeks ago. Really loving that game. It's I think Ella had told me at one point that she thought it had some similarities to Seasons, and I'd only played it the one time with you and Kira, and I hadn't really felt that way. But after playing it again a few times, I really do feel like it's not exactly like Seasons in any way, but it definitely pushes a lot of the same buttons in terms of how the game plays and some of the different decisions that you have to make. Another one I played that you guys have played the snot out of that I hadn't is Watergate. Oh, yeah. I finally played Watergate this last weekend with Alicia. She'd played it at Origins with Jeremy, another Jeremy, not this one. And that is really fun. The multi-use cards in that is really fun. I'm really interested to see what the longevity is like. I know you've said it just keeps getting better and better. I definitely want to play it more. I definitely want to introduce it to people who are not exactly board gamers, but might be interested in the subject matter and because I found that to be quite interesting. The flavor on the cards. I don't usually get into the flavor of a lot of things that are put in like manuals and things like that. This one's simple enough, and it's so integral to the core aspect of what you're each doing in the game, that I found that pretty interesting. And I'm a sucker for multi-use cards. Mm-hmm. So those are the two that I played most recently. I haven't played this, but Bastille, it's a Queen's game that came, I think, out at Essen last year. Yeah, around then. And I won a copy of that at Origins at like Queen's little gathering, and just read through the rules. It seems like a very straightforward, very basic Euro, like an intro to Euros. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely want to try that pretty soon. Cool. But it seems like an interesting little worker placement game.
Yeah. Been preparing for this live stream, which was actually, as you said, past live stream. We replayed Black Angel, and I'm glad we did. We've already played it like 3 or 4 times prior, but we've messed up some of the rules, and I'm glad we got those right. Really cool game. The DC deck builder I want to talk a little bit more about. You hooked me up with the idea of this game. Like, I've played the DC deck builder before, but the idea of locations and scenario packs is really neat. So Kira and I tried it as just the basic prologue, and it was hard. Like, it was really hard as nails. We won with 3 cards.
You did win?
We did win,
barely.
But cards are your life force, and you have a stack of cards, probably like 40, 50 cards. We got right down to the end just on the prologue, and it looks really, really interesting because the more you get into the game, the more secrets that you start to reveal.
So did you open something?
No, we just played the prologue. We didn't want to get into it.
Oh, so the prologue doesn't quite get you to opening anything.
No, you're just using 2 of the supervillains. So, and the last game I want to talk about was Parks. So we got a copy of Parks in, and I played it a half dozen times. This game is a gateway game, which you're traversing a park over 4 seasons. Kind of a little bit of a set collection because you're trying to get sets of resources to be able to visit parks. Mm-hmm. But it's got probably in the top 5 best art I've ever seen.
Yeah, the graphic design and the art are awesome.
The art is just beyond amazing. They have like dozens of unique and different artists that have contributed to this with all the different sketches of what the parks look like. Beautiful, beautiful production. So if you guys are interested in like a gateway game that you can play with your family, make sure you guys go to Keymaster Games at Gen Con because they'll have copies there, and it's really, really cool.
And just the overall, when you say the production, it's from every step of it. Yep. The insert and how thoughtful it is. They have just like Wingspan on the side of the box, how to put everything back. They've got really cool little trays to keep all the components in. Everything, every little piece of that game, down to the first player marker, is just very, very nice. Like the detail was very thought out in that game.
Yeah, the presentation of that kind of reminds me of Wingspan level type presentation. A little bit, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like maybe it's just the nature theme too or something like that, but it definitely has that vibe.
Well, I just got back from Dice Tower Con, where it's like 4 or 5 days of just straight gaming. I played probably 17 or 18 games. A lot of those games were new to me. I finally got to play Outer Rim, the new Star Wars game, Sierra West, which is great. And I played Sinister 6 there, which was a lot of fun. It's kind of a gateway game where you're just like kind of hand management to play cards to match symbols and try to beat these or complete these heists before Spider-Man catches you. I got caught, but the experience was a lot of fun. But
what character did you play? One of the Sinister Six?
I did. I played twice now. I was Mysterio the first time I played, and Kraven the second time. I didn't like Kraven nearly as much. The flexibility wasn't there. Mysterio has all these like combat tricks and some like illusions you could do. Yeah. Also, I was right off of Spider-Man, so I really wanted to play Mysterio. But the game that I played at Dice Tower that blew me away was Flotilla, and we talked about this on our Gen Con release. They're going to have a production copy at Gen Con, at least to see, maybe to demo. I don't know what their scheduled demos are. If you get a chance to demo it. I mean, this game is brilliant. It's very interesting in the way that it's really 2 games in one. And when you hear that, you think, okay, you get to a certain point, you flip, and then you play the second game, like in Jaws. Mm-hmm. But different players can be in different halves of the game at the same time. And the way that the levers in one half push and pull the levers in the other half is very interesting. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. So I'm very excited to play it again. It comes out at Essen. I can't recommend this game highly enough.
Cool.
Well, that is it for this very tight and very hopefully shorter episode of Chit Chat before Gen Con hits us. Hopefully, if you're there, track us down, play a game with us. That should be just next week, right?
Yeah.
From when this airs. So hopefully, if we don't see you at Gen Con, as always, make some comments down below. Tell us how you like to protect your games. If you don't care about your games, you can tell us that. And again, comment down there if you want a chance to win Comanats as well. And until next time, We'll see you then. Well, that's another episode of Chit Chat in the Bag. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out another one, there's probably one right over here in the bottom left-hand corner, or probably your right-hand corner. Whatever corner, we have something to click on. So click on one of these things and good things will happen.